Time Splitters is a first-person shooter developed by a team called Free Radical Design for the PlayStation 2 exclusively, released in the year 2000. Free Radical is made up of former members of people who worked on GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and it's easy to see the similarities when playing the game. Despite a few cheap irritations with the single-player mode here and there, it's still a largely enjoyable game, and one of the best FPS games to ever grace the PlayStation 2. Upon first playing Time Splitters, it seems deceptively shallow in terms of content and gameplay, but the more you get into it, the more you'll discover just how much Time Splitter has to offer. Considering when it was released, it's still a half-decent looking and sounding game, and it's still got a lot of aesthetic charm even now. The visuals are really comical, and despite the amount of weaponry and sheer carnage on offer, there's not a drop of blood to be seen. When you kill someone, they just kind of fall to their knees and call it a day. Now, the first game mode you're likely to get your hands on is the Story Mode. This is a series of 9 levels, all set in different time periods, where you choose from one of 2 characters and shoot your way through a short, fairly linear level as fast as possible. The general aim of this mode is just to find a particular object and bring it back to the starting point. Each mission has its own weapons, theme, music, and enemy type, which makes them all pretty fun to play and somewhat unique. The layouts are pretty well constructed, and the weapons are mostly great fun to use, with dual-wielded Uzis being my personal favourite. Anyway, once you find the object, the eponymous Time Splitters show up and generally just make themselves a bit of a nuisance as they try to stop you. They don't pose too much of a threat, and often it's easier just to run right past them. I think my favourite level is the one set in Hong Kong, where you're taken on waves of Triad members in a Chinese restaurant. When you play each mission, you choose from 3 difficulty modes, which largely seem to affect the amount of enemies in a level and the damage they do, but also the layout of the level itself. Regardless of what difficulty you choose, the end product is still the same. Shoot everything you see on the way in, then just run like hell on the way out. It should be said that sometimes this can be a very hard game. The controls are butter smooth, and it also has quite a liberal auto-aiming system, but there's no checkpoints or any of that nonsense, so you have to finish each mission in one go. I mean, if you've picked up the level item and you're a couple meters away from the finish line only to be shot in the back, well, bad luck, Sonny Jim. I know this was a conscious design choice and all that, but it does make the game seem a little bit unfair, and I can see it pissing off a lot of gamers, as well it should. I mean, enemies often pop out of nearby corridors to get the drop on you, and most of the time you can take them down before they knock off too much health, but it doesn't take much damage before your character buys the farm. Most of them hit scanners, so you can't really sidestep attacks either, and finishing levels on the highest difficulty will just boil down to memorizing enemy placements and taking them out quickly enough. But even on the normal setting, you die really quick, and it doesn't help that most of the levels only offer up 1 or 2 healing items and maybe some body armor if you're lucky. The quality for each of these is really inconsistent too, as is the difficulty. I mean, the first mission in the game is also one of the hardest, whilst I find the last few missions you unlock to be much too easy. One mission has you inside a haunted house, going up against a shitload of double-barrel shotgun-wielding zombies, which is just flat-out terrible. Whoever designed this really needs to just go and sit in a corner somewhere for like, ever. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, it's true that the main focus of the game is the multiplayer mode, but to unlock all of the content for this, you have to finish each of the single-player missions on the normal, if not highest difficulty. So at one point, you're going to have to face these problems. Unless you're the kind of person who's happy playing a game with content still locked. I'm not that kind of person. It's just amazing though, the amount of stuff they've packed into this game, and the amount of customization options the player's given for creating these multiplayer matches is pretty incredible. You can do things like creating your own set of custom bots to play around with, through to modifying the weapons the game puts in each level, and it gives the game a lot of replayability. It's obviously more fun playing with friends, but even when you're playing with bots, this can still be a huge time sink. When skimming through the playable characters for the multiplayer, you really get a sense of the style and tone Free Radical were going for, and some of their creations are sheer brilliance. I can't imagine anyone not falling in love with the game's art style and tongue-in-cheek attitude.
Oh yeah.
Aside from the single and multiplayer mode, there's also a challenge mode on offer as well, which once again when completed, just unlocks more crap for you to play around with in the multiplayer mode. Now these challenges are sadistically difficult and often timed, and if you do manage to complete them, it will generally come down to the wire. Also, it's a little bit of an anticlimax when you do finally beat one of them after the 10th or so attempt, only to get a measly multiplayer character for your troubles. Lastly, there's a pretty cool map maker feature which you can use to show off to your friends or just for your own personal amusement. I mean, you're not going to even come close to creating anything like what's featured in the single-player campaign, but it is a fun little time waster. At the end of the day, I think the real make or break factor to playing this game is, do you have someone to play it with? Going through the single player modes and getting all that crap done is all well and good, but playing with bots can only take you so far. Once you've managed to finish all the missions on offer, there's not any reason ever to play them again, and the amount of longevity you get out of this game on the whole is going to come down to whether or not you can fill your time elsewhere. If you've got a bro or broette to play with, then Time Splitters offers up potentially hours and hours of good, wholesome and satisfying gunplay. In the next video, I'll be taking a look at the sequel Time Splitters 2, a game that improves upon the foundation of this game in every single way.